Hi everyone, welcome to the MemesteticA online program. I am Valentina Tanni and I am the curator of this series of online conversations produced by Aksioma Institute for Contemporary Art in Ljubljana. This is also part of a larger series of conversations and talk called 𝗕cies and Practice. This is the 11th edition of 𝗕cies and Practice. The MemesteticA program explores, of course, the world of memes and participatory culture more in general, trying to focus on its relationship with modern and contemporary visual art. So our goal is to discuss meme aesthetics and to investigate the role that this new cultural ecosystem is having in reshaping our concept of art and our ideas about the role of artistic production in society. So today I have the pleasure to chat with two members of the Clusterduck collective, so Silvia and Noel, that are here on behalf of a larger collective of people. So I warmly welcome them. Welcome to the MemesteticA online program. So first of all, thank you for being here. And I also have to thank them because they designed the incredible cover for the Slovenian edition of my book, which is also titled MemesteticA. So thank you for that also. And before we begin our actual conversation, I'm going to say a few words about you. I'm going to present you very briefly to our audience. So Clusterduck is an interdisciplinary collective working in different fields, so new media studies, design, transmedia, investigating processes and actors behind the creation of internet-based content. They curated a few online exhibitions, for example, Meme Propaganda, that was hosted by Green Cube Gallery and then presented in different venues and festivals across Europe. And they also created a participative exhibition titled Memers for Future that explores the role of memetics in the context of the climate justice movement. And finally, they are currently working on another huge transmedia project called Meme Manifesto. That is a project that explores the different kinds and different levels of memetic symbology. So welcome again, and I would like to ask you a few questions today. And the first one I would like to ask you is about the origins of your artistic practice in the context of the internet. So let's get back to how it all started. And so how and when did you first become interested in internet memes? So what was about memes that sparked your curiosity, your imagination as artists, as creative people?
Okay, so some of us are into memes since many years because we are millennials. So as many other internet people of our generation, we kind of grow with meme in a way. Then as a collective, there are many other things that kind of get us approach meme and meme culture. For example, since 2016, there is a Telegram group chat project that is called Just Fresh Dunk Memes, where we try to dialogue just using dunk memes, possibly fresh. And this was like our first approach with memes as a collective. Then also since 4 years, there is between us an aim to use memes as a vehicle to reach and study internet subcultures, which is very important for us because usually we look at memes by this point of view. So who makes the memes, in which social media platform or niche those memes were born. So we kind of use memes as a vehicle to study internet communities in a way. And then is, of course, the project that you mentioned, Meme Propaganda, which was one of our first and most challenging projects as a collective. And in Meme Propaganda, what we we tried to do, it was shortly after the first great meme war, so all the story about Trump versus Hillary campaign. And what we wanted to do with meme propaganda was to spread the word that memes could be used for tools for propaganda, but also that they could be used for creating new and possibly grassroots narratives. And so there it is. Then I think Noel want to add something.
Yeah,
I don't know, Noel, if you want to add something.
Yeah, maybe just to expand a little on what Sylvia was mentioning about I mean, the first desire that sparked everything in a way was this desire to understand, to study internet subcultures, but also because we wanted to show that there was something happening on the internet that we felt we were a part of, though in different ways. And we had this perception that viewed from the outside, many things, like in the mainstream discourse, many things coming from the internet were presented in negative terms. So either social media or memes were always associated, for example, with forms of hate speech or xenophobic propaganda. And that, of course, is a relevant phenomenon, but there were also so many other things that we perceived as positive. So really these things of wanting to show, but also to take care of these subcultures that we felt we were also a part of. And I think that was a drive in the study of memes as well, because each of us was coming from different backgrounds. So there were people hanging around on Tumblr, for example, others on weird Facebook, or maybe others on Reddit, or even on 4chan for different reasons. Others, again, were on Discord, for example. And I think what we realized pretty soonish was that the common language for all these bubbles were memes. Of course, there were different styles, but memes were a common denominator in a way. So they pretty soon became somehow the central object of interest for us, because we also realized that they have this plural aspect. So there are a subculture in a way, there are a digital subculture, but they're also visual, artistic phenomenon, as we already mentioned. But maybe most of all, they're a form of language. They are the common language of the internet. And that was what we found so fascinating about them. And we realized that if this is true in a way, then it is important that everyone learns to speak this language and learns to understand how this language works, because there is great power coming from this new kind of language, and we all should be able to use it. And so we are trying also to democratize it, if you want, in a way, through our work.
Thank you. And another thing I am curious about is the theme of one of the workshops that you are organized for Aksioma. And one of these workshops is titled An Investigation of Memes as Art and Art as Memes. So as you know, I'm really interested in this relationship between the world of memes and the world of art in general, visual art in general, meaning also in relationship with the history, especially the recent history of contemporary art. So I would like to ask you if, from your point of view, you consider memes an art form, and in which sense, and in some way you already partially answered to that question, but maybe you can expand a little bit on that concept. And also, how do you tackle this topic in the context of the workshop? So how do you explain to the people taking part in the workshop this relationship between art and memes, and in which sense do you consider memes an art form?
Okay, so of course, when we were invited by Aksioma and by you, we thought of doing something about it, also because of your work with memes and art. So this is also part of our inspiration. Lately, we have been reflecting a lot on the concept of meme as a collective performance. So maybe perhaps due to the fact that we approach memes starting from the point of view of memetic subculture, we kind of realized that memes should never be studied or intended as just only as a single unit. So this is what early memetic theorists used to do, like the post-𝗕𝗂𝗂𝘀𝗁𝗁 studies. They tend to think about memes based on the Dawkins concept of a meme as a single unit of idea spreading virally through the web. And while what we are thinking and sometimes also what we are doing, because we are also, you know, craftsmans in a way, so we tend to do things with memes. And so what we are doing is thinking about memes as a always a plural in a way. So memes exist because of a dialogue between the community, and memes exist in a given context. And this let us think that, for example, all the 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗃 or all the 𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃 or all the 𝗕cia snow, so all meme formats like classic meme formats and so on, should be perceived as a performance of new media art, which is conducted not by a single author, but by a collective author, which is sometimes organized and sometimes is not, but is always, you know, something more than just an object. So, and this in this art is coming to our help in a way, because we can draw some tendencies that were studied in the history of art and kind of juxtapose it with what is happening with memes. And so this is, sometimes we do this. About the workshop, we usually tend to also try to look at what participants can bring to the table. So, because this workshop that we call protocols are our way to reach the more possible zones of the meme sphere. So, for example, we could talk about original content memes, which we did in the book that is going to come out with Aksioma, the detectable guide, because also what is happening now with NFTs and all the memes of the golden era sold as a single object interested us a lot, because we do not really agree with this, what is going on with this tendency. Also, one thing we would like maybe to expand is a study we make also during our work in the detectable guide and the detectable exhibition, is the digital patina and the relation between digital patina, glitch art, and fried memes, because this is also a little thing happening in a little niche that did really interest us, and also we see a correlation between what was happening in the history of art and what is happening with fried memes. It really depends from what the participant can also bring and what they know, and so usually we talk a bit about everything, and then we find what can, you know, on which we can collaborate together during the workshop.
Yeah,
I
don't
think,
know now if you wanna,
Yeah, I just
please.
wanted to add something on that last aspect. For example, what Silvia was mentioning of the fried memes, which are, if we want to call it an artistic practice or a methodology or whatever, that comes mainly from the African American, from the Black American user community, for example. I think what is important there is also that we keep in mind that there is always an aspect of financial exploitation, if you want, of value exploitation. So there is a symbolic value being produced by memes, and that was also something that we recognized very early when I was talking before about this desire of taking care of digital communities. What we were seeing is that these communities, not only with memes, but in a larger sense, were creating new aesthetics, were creating new styles, and we were fearful somehow of what would happen when the mainstream, when corporations or I mean, all those kind of creative agencies in which admittedly we ourselves work in our day jobs, when they would see this aesthetics. Because what, for example, a comparison we often made was with street art and urban art. So you have these new phenomenons that come out of an urban subculture in the 70s, and they're initially very closed and limited to groups of people that usually are also groups of people that are marginalized in some form. And I think the same was happening with some digital subcultures. So a lot of stuff was coming out from marginalized communities, from communities of people of color, for example, from queer communities. And then this slowly came into the mainstream, and now we are seeing the last stage of this process, what Sylvia was describing, that memes are being sold, for example, as works of art. And our fear is that this is not a process that is helping these communities. It's just the old story repeating over again. So it's a story of cultural appropriation, of financial exploitation. So this is something that we should always keep in mind as people who study and work with these communities. And then the other thing I wanted to mention regarding the workshop is that, of course, there's always the difficulty of reproducing something that is the result of a very complex ecosystem in a closed environment as a workshop. So you're really trying to reproduce in a very closed environment, this very complex context from which all these images come from. And of course, it won't be, I mean, it's not possible to replicate this on a one-on-one scale. But what you can see maybe is extrapolate a few aspects. And for example, one important aspect that we want to investigate is the relationship between the architecture of certain platforms and the style that results on the memes on that platforms, for example. Another aspect is the methods, the tools that are being used to produce these memes. So are they being produced on a desktop? Are they being produced on a smartphone? Are they produced through apps? Are they produced through programs like Photoshop? And all these are things that you need to consider as well. And of course, it's not easy to reproduce them in a workshop that lasts just a few hours. But we hope that these are also aspects that we will be able to discuss with the participants.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just a last question. I'm really interested in talking a little bit about your last big effort. I mentioned earlier the Meme Manifesto project, which is also the subject of the exhibition you install in Ljubljana. And I read that the format of this project is inspired by a couple of different cultural artifacts. The first one is, of course, the detective wall, which was also mentioned by Sylvia a minute ago. So the detective wall we see in movies and TV series, but also you declare that you were inspired by an art historical object, a legendary one, which is the Mnemosine Atlas by 𝗕𝗓𝗏 Warburg, which is also a big, complex collection of images that come from different places and different historical moments. And so 𝗕𝗓𝗏 Warburg, he was trying to build connections and try to see how images change during time and moving in time and space. So can you tell us a little bit about this project background, first of all? So how did you design this project? So how did you came up with this idea of building this meme manifesto? But also I would like you to explain why these two particular cultural artifacts that are very there are somehow similar but very different, but they come from very different contexts. So how these two cultural artifacts were inspirational for you in the building of this project that, as I understand, that it is a very long project and complex project. I don't know how long have you been working on it also?
So yes, Meme Manifesto is a transmedia project which is happening since many years. Like the first idea was conceived during the Digital Wrong Biennale with Jules Durand that we created together a book. As Clusterduck, we created together this book, which was a beta version of printed memes, so a kind of beta archive. Then maybe Noel could expand more about this. But then Meme Manifesto became a kind of umbrella term for this transmedia operation that we are doing, which is we could call like mapping meme sphere. Or we still have to understand actually, but the detective wall is one of the different outputs of Meme Manifesto. So, for example, the protocols, the workshops are exchanging with other communities what these memes are about, and all the different kind of niche and subcultures of memes are about, while the detective wall is let's say an exhibition that is also digital but analogic. And what happened with Detective Wall is that we were observing like on our skin the consequences of being exposed to an inhuman amount of data and information, which all internet users, active internet users, are kind of suffering by this trauma. So what we observe is that many internet users suffering by this trauma tend to react by trying to categorize, archiving, collecting, classifying this information because you know, we are humans and we tend to try to find patterns in order to survive to a very complex environment, to simplify this environment. And of course we know that this tendency, which is called apophenia, or it has many names, but often also brings to misinterpretation. Therefore, we decided to use the crazy wall aesthetic, and to quote the 𝗕𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏 meme, because this feeling that we have that memes could I mean, that feeling that memes are, I mean, our gesture of archiving the meme sphere is kind of desperate in a way, but and will be also a process that could never end. But also we feel that memes can hide some secret that we need to decipher. For example, sometimes we think about memes as an expression of the internet collective subconscious. So we have, you know, that desire to discover more, or sometimes we think about memes as magic objects that are capable of changing reality, and this is what we did with meme propaganda. Or sometimes we have the impression that memes can contain ancient lore of lost, abandoned memetic subcultures, so we have that desire of discover something from the past. And all these desires that we had about memes, then we use it as a collective to try to craft something about this, and so we started to compose these panels in order to create patterns, and to tell the story of what is different kind of meme niche were about, and this is then how the 𝗕𝗹𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗋𝗃 method of the juxtaposition came to our mind and came of our help in a way.
Yeah, and in fact, the 𝗕𝗹𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗋𝗃's atlas was an impossible attempt to categorize in a similar way, and that is the reason why Warburg kept rearranging things until the end of his life, because it was impossible to fix a final order and to fix a final categorization. So in a way, it's a similar attempt, a similar utopian attempt, so to pursue an impossible task, but nonetheless a necessary one, if I understand.
Noel actually studied 𝗕𝗹𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗃 a lot, so I think he has something to say as well.
I was just I don't know, it was more kind of like Jungian synchronicity, you know, like we were really trying to, as Silvia described before, we were really trying to exercise. I mean, Meme Manifesto is a way. I mean, we said it at the beginning when you were asked us why did you study why did you start to study memes, and the truth is we never decided. It's just something that happened at a certain point, and it became bigger and bigger, and then it went out of control, and now we are kind of sucked in this wormhole. And Meme Manifesto was a way to try to exercise this whole thing and say, okay, we have to put like an end to this whole thing of investigating memes. But of course, as you are saying, it's hopeless. It will never end. It will always. But still, we like the poetic aspect of this, trying to put an end to it. And Meme Manifesto and the detective wall were an expression of this desire. So in a form. So on one side, we had the 𝗕𝗶𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗃 meme, this detective wall meme, which in a way came to us, and Warburg came to us in a way as well, because it was in the last summer 2020 we were all here in Berlin trying to find ways to make all these pieces of work that we had and this archive of images and all these ideas. We were trying a way to make them work, and there was a big 𝗕𝗹𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗃 Warburg exhibition coming up at 𝗕𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗃, which is this exhibition center here in Berlin. And they were recreating all the panels for the first time, like in real life size. Of course, this, because of Corona, it was all not so easy, but still, we were familiar already with Warburg's work, but we saw it also a little bit as a sign, and we already had these black panels filled with stuff, and suddenly we realized, okay, what we could do is actually really use Warburg's method here. Although instead of trying to do what he did, like so trying to find a pathos formel, what he called pathos formel, this kind of compositional aspect, what we are trying to do is more this ethnographic aspect, or like kind of internet historians. So trying to discover the stories, the connections, the protagonists that made certain aspects of memetic culture emerge. And that's what each panel tells in a way, a little story that is connected also to a certain style, to a certain aesthetic, maybe to certain platforms, to certain ideas. But each panel is a story in itself. And when you put them together, it's kind of like Dante's Inferno. You get deeper and deeper, and it gets weirder and more abstract the more you get towards the end.
Yeah, and probably that's why you chose the iceberg as a symbol. I saw on the website there is this big iceberg that then goes down deep, and that's very it's very spot on as a symbol for this never-ending research, and also about the perils of going too much down, too far down.
I think you are familiar.
I am familiar, and as you know, I built a wall too. The Great Wall of Meme is a different project, but it is born from similar problems, from similar needs. The need to build a system to try and find patterns, trying to find meanings in all these avalanche of content that we absorb daily.
It's like the cliche in the It's like the cliche in the movie, you know, you have a number or an image that keeps coming up and you have to get rid of it. So you start posting stuff on walls and writing and
finding your own way out of the labyrinth. Thank you very much, guys. It has been a pleasure to have this conversation, and I hope to meet you soon in person. And thanks also to all the people that joined this online conversation, and see you for another episode.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.